In the decrepit town of Eldridge Falls, the old high school stood as a relic of times past, with its ivy-clad walls and Gothic architecture that seemed to trap the gloom of the sky. The students whispered about the derelict fourth floor, condemned and closed off, rumored to be the haunt of a student who never graduated, forever lingering in the shadows. One night, a group of 4 friends, driven by a mix of teenage bravado and the thrill of a dare, decided to explore the forbidden floor. Armed with nothing but their flashlights and a camera to document their adventure, they ascended the creaking staircase that groaned under the weight of their steps, as if warning them to turn back. The air grew colder with each step, and the darkness seemed to swallow the beams of their flashlights. They reached the 4th floor, and the door creaked open with an eerie moan. The hallway stretched before them, lockers like silent sentinels on either side, their doors hanging ajar. The friends moved cautiously. The only sounds were their shallow breaths and the soft clicks of the camera. Suddenly, a locker door slammed shut with force, echoing through the stillness. They jumped, turning their lights toward the sound, but there was nothing there, only the echo of their racing hearts. They pressed on, drawn by a mix of fear and curiosity. In the old classroom at the end of the hall, they found it, the project that had supposedly driven the lingering student to madness, a detailed model of the town as it was 50 years ago, every building meticulously recreated. As they examined it, the air grew thick, and the temperature dropped, their breath now visible in the icy atmosphere. One friend, Sam, reached out to touch the model, and as he did, the room around them began to shake. The walls bled shadows that swirled around, growing denser, more tangible, and a low whisper filled the air, repeating a name they couldn't quite hear. The friends tried to flee, but the doors slammed shut with a force that no human hands could muster. The camera, forgotten in the chaos, captured images in rapid succession, the flash staccato bursts in the darkness. In the viewfinder, something moved, a figure, cloaked in shadow, its eyes hollow pits of despair. It approached with jerky, unnatural steps, and as it drew closer, the whisper became a scream, the name now clear. "Finish it! Finish the assignment!" In a panic, Sam understood. He turned back to the model, his hands moving of their own accord to add the final piece, a replica of the high school. As the piece clicked into place, the shadows recoiled, the temperature normalized, and the door swung open. The friends stumbled out, gasping for air, the hallway now just a hallway. They dared not look back as they descended the stairs, the echo of their footsteps in unison with a whispered, "Thank you." Outside, they turned to look at the camera's display, but it was blank. Not a single image remained, just an error message that read, "File not found." In the small, sleepy town of Harrogate, the local high school had its share of legends, but none as chilling as the tale of the Whispering Locker. Locker number 214, set apart from the rest in the dimly lit corridor of the science wing, was never assigned. It was said that whoever claimed it as their own would hear ceaseless whispers revealing their darkest fears and deepest secrets until madness claimed them. A new student, Eliza, joined Harrogate High mid-semester. Unaware of the locker's grim history, she was assigned number 214 due to a clerical oversight. On her first day, she found the locker stuck, but with a little jostling, it gave way with a sigh, as if it had been waiting for her. Eliza initially dismissed the faint murmurs emanating from within as a trick of the mind. But as days passed, the whispers grew louder and clearer, speaking in tongues she felt she shouldn't understand. They spoke of things no one else knew, things Eliza had never uttered aloud. The whispers began to seep into her waking moments, tainting her thoughts during classes and as she tried to sleep at night. Eliza grew haggard, her eyes sunken from sleepless nights spent listening to the relentless murmurs. Her friends noticed the change, but when they asked, she'd simply shake her head, unable to explain the inescapable voices. One evening, unable to bear the whispers any longer, Eliza stayed after school under the guise of studying. She stood before locker number 214, her hands trembling as she whispered back. "What do you want from me?" The whispers coalesced into a single, intelligible voice, cold and detached. "Freedom," it said. "Release us." "Us?" Eliza's voice was barely audible. "Open the locker at midnight, and we will be free," the voice promised, and then fell silent. Eliza, driven by a mix of desperation and the faint hope of ending her torment, decided to do as the voice asked. She returned that night, the halls of Harrogate High dark and silent. Her flashlight beam danced over locker number 214 as the clock tower outside began to chime. The air grew thick with anticipation as she turned the combination lock, left, right, left, and then open. As the door creaked ajar, a gust of wind rushed out, and the whispers exploded into a cacophony of voices. Eliza staggered back, her mind assaulted by 1,000 screams, 1,000 souls begging for release. The force of their departure was so strong it knocked her to the ground, her flashlight spinning away. Then silence. Eliza lay there, panting, her ears ringing in the stillness. When she finally stood, the hallway was just a hallway, the locker just a locker, silent and empty. She left Harrogate High behind that night, the whispers gone but never forgotten. The locker remained unassigned, a silent sentinel guarding the quiet hall, its secret now buried with the voices that once dwelled within. In the small town of Willow's End, the local high school stood as an imposing structure, its old bricks coated with the patina of decades. Students spoke in hushed tones about Classroom 13B, a place shrouded in mystery since the school's founding. It was said that on certain moonless nights, the echoes of a long-forgotten class could be heard through its walls. One autumn evening, a group of friends dared each other to venture into 13B after hours. Armed with flashlights and a mix of excitement and fear, they crept into the dark, silent halls of the school. The air was thick with the musty scent of aged books and forgotten secrets as they approached the door of the fabled classroom. The moment they stepped inside 13B, the temperature dropped, and their breaths became visible in the icy air. The classroom was a frozen moment in time, with desks arranged in neat rows and an ominous chalkboard message that read, "Class dismissed, but never forgotten." As the friends explored, a chill wind slammed the doors shut, plunging them into darkness. Whispers filled the room, growing louder as if the class was taking their seats, unseen in the blackness. The friends huddled together, their flashlights flickering wildly as shadows danced across the walls. Suddenly, the whispers ceased, and a single voice spoke from the front of the room. "Begin the test," it commanded, the voice ancient and hollow. Papers rustled, and the friends felt the inexplicable weight of unseen tests being placed before them. They realized with dawning horror that they couldn't leave unless they completed the spectral examination. As they scribbled answers to questions about events they never lived and names they never knew, one by one, their lights snuffed out until only one remained. The final friend, with trembling hands, turned in the last paper, and the room fell silent. The morning janitor found the door to 13B ajar, the room empty except for a set of freshly completed tests on the teacher's desk. The handwriting matched no one's from the group of friends, who were never seen again. It was as if they had become part of the class that was never dismissed, eternally bound to 13B. At Westwood High, room 404 was the subject of many grim rumors. It was said that the room was sealed for a reason, a place where one student had vanished years ago without a trace, leaving behind only a broken mirror. One night, a curious student named Lily couldn't resist the lure of the forbidden room. As the school laid in silence, she made her way to the 4th floor, where room 404 awaited. The lock gave way to her careful hands, and she slipped inside. The room was untouched, a layer of dust covering everything except the mirror, which stood cracked but strangely clean. Lily approached the mirror, drawn by a force she couldn't explain. She peered into her reflection, but instead of her own eyes staring back, she saw another pair, filled with sorrow and fear. Fascinated and terrified, Lily reached out to touch the mirror, and as her fingers brushed the cool surface, her reflection began to warp. The sorrowful eyes beckoned her closer, and she could hear faint whispers pleading for help. As Lily's fear grew, the reflection shifted entirely, revealing the missing student, trapped in a world within the mirror. She screamed for Lily to break the glass, to set her free. Lily, driven by a desperate need to help, grabbed a chair and swung at the mirror. The glass shattered, and a dark vortex swirled in the now empty frame. Lily felt herself being pulled toward it, the whispers growing into an overpowering chorus. With all her might, she resisted, crawling backwards until she was outside the room, slamming the door shut. Breathless and shaking, Lily locked the door to room 404 and fled down the corridor. She told no one about what happened, too afraid to speak of it. The next day, Lily avoided the 4th floor entirely, but she couldn't shake the sensation of being watched. She passed by mirrors in the school, and in each one, she saw the missing student standing beside her reflection, a silent, pleading figure. Lily knew then that she had not sealed the terror within room 404 but had instead released it. The whispers followed her day and night, a constant reminder that some doors are closed for a reason, and some reflections are best left unmet. In the heart of Aldridge High School, there was a library that held more than just books. Legend told of the Midnight Librarian, a specter who cataloged not only literature but also the souls of those who dared to roam the stacks past the stroke of midnight. A skeptical student named Marco, armed with a love for myths and a daring spirit, decided to challenge the legend. He planned to hide in the library until after the school was deserted and the clock signaled the arrival of a new day. As midnight approached, Marco settled into a shadowed corner with only the moonlight spilling through the windows to keep him company. The library was eerily silent, the kind of silence that seemed almost loud, as if it were whispering secrets in a language only the books could understand. The grandfather clock in the library's foyer began to chime, and Marco felt a chill creep up his spine. The chimes were deep and resonant, reaching a crescendo as the 12th bell tolled. That's when he saw her, the Midnight Librarian. She was an ethereal figure that glided between the shelves, her fingers brushing the spines of the books as she passed. She turned to Marco, her eyes glowing faintly in the darkness, and beckoned him forward. Marco, feeling a mix of fear and fascination, found himself standing and following her deeper into the library. The books around him seemed to whisper as he walked, the words of 1,000 stories fluttering like moth wings. The librarian led him to an ancient ledger on a stand, its pages filled with names. With a ghostly quill, she gestured for him to write his name. Marco hesitated but felt compelled to obey. As his name flowed onto the page, the room spun, and the whispers crescendoed into a deafening roar. Then silence. Marco blinked, and he was outside the library, the sun rising on a new day. Weeks passed, and Marco couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. He noticed his name disappearing from the school's records, his friends' memories of him fading. It was as if he was being erased from existence, his soul catalogued and shelved away by the Midnight Librarian. Marco had become a living ghost, a tale tucked away in the library of forgotten stories. Cedar Grove High School was like any other school, with one exception, a row of ancient lockers that stood apart, unused, and sealed. They were known as the Whispering Lockers, and any student who pressed an ear against their cold metal doors reported hearing faint voices pleading from within. Curiosity overcame a group of students during the Halloween season. They decided to explore the phenomenon, dismissing the old tales as nothing but superstition. Among them was Jenna, a girl who had always been captivated by the unknown. The group gathered around the lockers, their laughter echoing in the empty hallway. One by one, they listened, their jests turning to uneasy silence as the whispers reached their ears. Jenna stepped forward, her heart pounding with a mix of dread and excitement. As she leaned in, the whispers grew clearer, and she could make out words. "Free us," they said. Jenna's hand trembled as she found one locker slightly ajar. Without thinking, she pulled it open. A rush of cold air burst out, and the whispers turned to screams. The lockers along the row banged open and shut, a cacophony of metallic thunder. The screams became so intense that the group fled, all except for Jenna, who stood frozen as an icy fog poured from the open locker. From the mist emerged shadowy figures, their features blurred and their eyes hollow with despair. They surrounded Jenna, their whispers now a chilling silence as they reached for her. With a last surge of will, Jenna slammed the locker shut, the figures vanishing as quickly as they had appeared. The next day, the whispers were gone, and the lockers were once again sealed, no sign of the previous night's terror. Jenna, however, was different. She moved through the halls in silence, her once warm eyes now as hollow as those who had been trapped within the lockers. It was said she had taken the place of the spirits, a silent guardian ensuring the lockers remained closed, keeping the whispers at bay.